Medical schools routinely look deeper into all this stuff than just a cursory sort of evaluation of one GPA. Welcome to this episode of Am I Ready? We're going to be talking to another hopeful pre-med student and talk about his journey thus far and kind of what things look like, and I'll give some conclusions about whether or not I think he's ready to apply this here. So we are welcoming to Am I Ready today, Joseph. Hello, Joseph.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're totally welcome. How's everything going with you?
Fantastically, moving forward.
Nice.
Can't be better.
Now, where are you calling from today?
Tooele, Utah.
Tooele, Utah.
And we were 45 minutes west of Salt Lake.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier. This is a small town, I take it.
Yeah. It used to be smaller, to the chagrin of some of the people in the neighborhood, but it's I like it. It's nice and quaint.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, we are going today, Joseph, look at your Mapped account and analyze, kind of where things have gone so far, and I'll make some conclusions about where I think things stand, and feel free to ask questions as we go along. So let's bring up your Mapped account, and here we see that. And as Joseph, and as many of our viewers and listeners know, the first thing that comes up on the Mapped account is the dashboard. And we see that dashboard here. And then the very first thing on the dashboard is the GPA graph, this nice little colorful graph that pretty much tells the story of your academic journey thus far, at least in the numerical ways, and so we want to talk about that. So we see here the AMCAS calculation of a cumulative GPA of 3.08 and a science GPA of 3.05, but we really see in what I'm looking at here, Joseph, is really kind of a two-part story in a lot of ways. It seems to me like we see a lot of ups and downs with really a pretty notable what I would say a before and an after, in terms of the GPA graph itself, especially that green line, which is the semester by semester line. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here?
Yeah. So once upon a time, as you can see here, I entered college in 2008. So I'm an oldie.
Right.
So I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do for career. I started thinking maybe psychology, and I kind of narrowed it down to, because I was an athlete in high school. But I had a full-time job that I was working. So I kind of abandoned all hope to play in college, just because there was no time, and I'd married about a year after I started college. So I just thought, you know what, maybe I'll go into exercise science. I started looking toward that and making my career, focusing my career on that. It started off well. I mean, I wasn't aiming stupendous. I got a scholarship after I finished my associate's degree to my 4-year university because of my good GPA. And I mean, as you can see here, there was that one, I think it was the second semester that it was but
right.
And a lot of that had to do, and this is kind of the story of it, like throughout the entirety, was famously, I working a full-time job, trying to support my family, trying to spend time with them. And at one point, I just thought, you know what, C's get degrees. So
right.
I remember there would be times that I'd be, I worked in textile manufacturing, so I was making fabric. I would be in the middle of my shift and like, okay, anatomy lab is going to start in an hour. And then some of the machines would shut down. I'd have issues, and then I'd be racing trying not to break any speed limits.
Right.
From my job to get to lab in time. And back then we had these clickers. So I'd be in the parking lot trying to connect to the to the questionnaire.
Right.
And, even though I didn't know what the questions were, like, okay, it looks like I'm online. And yeah, so I mean, just grades weren't, school wasn't first and foremost. And at a certain point, it almost became a secondary job because the funds that were coming in from the student loans to help pay for mortgage and whatnot.
Right.
And yeah, but I mean, school was school, but it wasn't, and this was always instilled in me when I was a kid. You always have to make sure to have a full-time job and supporting yourself and try to follow that. But then toward sometime my junior year, maybe the beginning of my senior year, I was thinking, okay, am I going to go to grad school? What am I going to do next?
Yeah.
And one of my advisors said, hey, a lot of grad schools, especially if you're trying to exercise science and your GPA isn't the best. So, I mean, they like seeing research. So have you thought about that? I ended up joining it actually ended up being a minor in pediatric clinical research at the University of Utah. But they allowed us to go into an emergency room and work on research for the hospital. And I fell in love with everything about it. I mean, I was there, I think between 12 and 20 hours a week, something like that. It's been a long time to look at my notes, but I mean, I was just constantly there at the hospital, talking with the physicians, doing research, meeting with the pediatric patients. And I fell in love. And I remember going to my counselor and thinking, yeah, so I'm thinking I might want to go to medical school. And then we talked a little bit about what that would entail. And but I remember in retrospect thinking, I mean, yeah, I'm a good guy. I'm a smart guy. When I go and interview, they'll see. I mean, yeah, my GPA is bad, but they'll see that I'm a smart, nice guy. So why wouldn't I be able to get into medical school?
Right.
But I mean, there's some prereqs I still need to do. I haven't done that. So I still had a full-time job. I just during that time recently moved into an office position where I was doing sales. And I thought, well, during all this time when I was doing the research, the director of our program, who was a physician, had just finished his MBA. Just like telling everybody, hey, understanding the business side of things, that changed my life. I completely see medicine in a different way. So if at any point in your career you have the opportunity to get business training, I highly recommend it. Then you'll be a real change agent. And I thought, well, I mean, I can get two birds with one stone here. I can work on my MBA and increase my career in my current job, and be ready for when that day comes and I can put on a white coat. I'll have that MBA background to inform my career later. So yeah, I went and I took the GMAT, got accepted to an MBA program. I started 2 weeks after my bachelor's was over. It was a whirlwind, and it was really fun. I was having a great time and learning about things I'd never learned about before. But then in our second quarter, I had a professor saying, where are you right now? And where do you want to be 5 years from now? Keep doing the same things that you're doing now. You're not going to get to where you want to be. And I thought, I mean, I'm not doing anything to progress to get to medical school and just work on the MBA. I need to make a change. And that was early 2017. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, and of course I spoke with my wife and we talked a lot about it.
Right. Sure.
And I went to him and I said, hey, you know what? I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. I want to focus on becoming a physician. And so what I was doing was I was doing my MBA at night, using those student loans to pay for pre-med classes during the day.
Wow.
And so I was juggling both of those. And that's around the time, and you can see like summer of 2015, I got a 4.0 and then juggle things a year later. And it's like, okay, maybe I'm not as good at juggling the two different loads that I thought I would be. And at the time, and if I could, the old tale, if I could go back in time, I didn't understand or know how important it was to have a stellar post-bac. So, but then something triggered, And I thought, okay, you know what? I really need to. And then I got a 4.0. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a 4.0. The next semester, I got another 4.0. I'm like, okay, I got this. I can start studying. I can do this. And during all of this, I had come up with because I suffer from a sleeping disorder called sleep paralysis and confusional arousal syndrome. So during this time, this is something I talked about ever since I was a little kid. Like, oh, I wish there was a robot that could exist to wake people up and break them out of their cycle. So during all of this, I thought, hey, I'm getting an MBA education, I'm getting a pre-med education. Maybe I should just marry those together. I did some networking. I reached out to some biomedical engineers, and we invented a medical device to help people with those sleeping disorders. And I went and I was doing research. I went back and I was working at the university hospital research team. I was working on another research project. I got involved and I got elected to student government. I was doing all of the things that I wish I had done when I was an undergrad and just trying to be as involved as possible. But things got really big and convoluted with trying to pitch to investors and dealing with the patents. And we're poor college students, so we don't have money for a lawyer. And so I then devoted, and that's probably this summer of 2016, I devoted all of my time to try and get the steps needed to get the medical device off the ground. And unfortunately, I was taking OChem 2, I believe it was at the same time. And it was just my GPA dropped again, 2.4. And after that point, I thought, you know what, I'm making the same mistakes. I need to do better. And I worked trying to juggle things and make things work. And my last 32 undergrad credit hours were 3.89. And hoping that upward trend will be noticeable. But like I mentioned before, I was doing graduate level courses at the exact same time. So, I mean, there is all that, like if somebody's looking at my transcript, they might not notice readily like, oh, his undergraduate courses, which were all science courses, were really high. I mean, one thing which I ended up getting involved in, that's a huge convoluted story I'm not even going to get into, but I ended up getting recruited into a doctorate of business administration program at Drexel University. This was something I was kind of planning on doing way later in my career after I become an attending. But one thing led to another, and my pre-med advisor said, hey, you got this acceptance. Med school will still be here in 3 years. Go do your research and go change the world.
Yeah.
And I said, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I have a year left in that, and working on it since. And yeah,
good. So you bring up a good point that I really want to emphasize, and that is if we go to the detail of the GPA stuff, there's part here that I really want to emphasize. And that is down here. We got us slow here. And that is this part here where we see the GPA calculated out by class standing. And so what I want to emphasize here is we see here the post-bac GPA, which is all those science courses. And then we see the graduate GPA, which is going to be all your MBA and your stuff at Drexel. And so medical schools are going to see this. You know, the MCAS calculates lots of different GPAs for each applicant. And so they're not just going to see that cumulative GPA. They're not just going to see that science GPA. They're going to see all of it. And they're going to see this GPA cut up into a lot of different pieces. And so what I want to emphasize here is that, you know, your post-bac GPA looks like 58 hours at basically a 3.5. Your graduate GPA, 81 hours, almost 82 hours at a 3.6. You know, these are good numbers and, you know, much better numbers than what the cumulative is. And so what you're really going to be emphasizing to the medical schools that you apply to is, yeah, my undergraduate GPA is what it is, but what you're wanting them to focus on are these other GPAs, that post-bac GPA and the graduate GPA. Yes, the graduate GPA is in something other than science, but I think it does emphasize that you can be successful in the classroom at a much higher level than what that cumulative GPA suggests. And I think that, medical schools routinely look deeper into all this stuff than just a cursory sort of evaluation of one GPA. So does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I'm really hoping and leaning on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I really want you to, have a good degree of confidence that the medical schools are going to really look deep into each application to see what is your story, and that is where we really want to emphasize the importance of really telling your story well in the application, not just via the numbers, but via the personal statement and your other essays that you're going to write, secondary applications, etc., as well as your the interview and letters of recommendation. All of these things go together to tell the story of who Joseph is and what he's all about and why he's doing what he's doing. So that's really important, I think, to understand that. So while we're talking about the numbers, let's go down to this Mcat evaluation, and we see 3 points plotted here on this graph, and I want to go to the details on that. And so it looks like to me that we have several practice tests here. Am I looking at this right?
2 practice tests and 1 official.
Okay,
so the 2019 is the actual Mcat.
Okay.
I don't have the test scores anymore, but I had been taking some practice exams, and they were hovering at like 499. Mm-hmm. And like I said, this is when I first started getting into the pre-med world, and so I thought, okay, and I read things on Reddit like, X company is deflated, and so it's deflated. So if you're scoring this, add 5 points to your MCAT, and you'll be fine. Like, okay, sounds good. I guess I'm ready. And I was thinking, I'll get like a 505. Maybe I'll even like squeak in a 510. That'll be great, because I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
And so then I got a 491. Worst score I've ever gotten. Up to this date, I've never gotten that.
Right. So the moral of that story is, don't put very much credibility in what you read on Reddit.
Nope.
Yeah. And I want to emphasize that for our listeners, as well as for you, Joseph, is that I think that students like yourself need to be very, very careful when they are looking at these online forums. Student Doctor Network and Reddit they can give a lot of bad information, wrong information, and even the correct information that you will read on there. You don't know which is which, which is the bad and which is the good. You don't know any of those people. And it really does increase anxiety quite a bit. And I've just heard it over and over and over. So my suggestion for all of our listeners, and certainly for you, Joseph, is if you cannot avoid SDN forums as well as Reddit, then you have to go into it with a real sense of, I am not going to trust this information until I verify it with others that are in the know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I spend most of my pre-med time now on the pre-med hangouts on Facebook.
Yeah, good.
It's a very nice team. I love it.
Yeah, good. And we have several of those, the mapped hangouts and stuff like that. And so, and we monitor those, and Dr. Gray and Rachel Grubbs are consistently in those. And, so I do think that those are very trustworthy. But even at that, we do sometimes get erroneous information on there, and we try to, try to mediate that as best we can in terms of giving the correct information and all that. So anyway, so let's move on, and I want to look specifically at, so your target date for MCAT is April 16th. Is that still a good date? Is that still your plan?
I thought I updated it. My apologies. Yeah. Oh, heavens. Yeah, there it is. There. No, I'm thinking more end of May. Because although I would like it before I submit my application, and when you go into my activities, you're going to see I'm very busy.
Right.
So
sure.
I have been, I started this last week, my concentrated real study of the MCAT. Some things happened that pushed back my timeline time and time again. But now I've weeded some things out in my schedule. And I mean, I felt a marked difference when I was able to sit down and really like focus on the MCAT materials for a week. And I finally broke the 500
good
threshold. Good. I mean, I know it's not a huge like 505. Okay. But for me, it was, oh my gosh, I don't believe it. I cracked
right.
And 5 points over. Oh my gosh. It was such a breath of relief. And it kind of made me want to think, oh, now I want to know everything. And
right.
My target score is between a 510 and a 515, trying to be realistic.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I feel like I'm in a good trend, and with another 2.5, 3 months of concentrated study, I think I can get there.
Yeah, great. So end of May is your target.
Maybe early June.
Okay. All right. Good. And I definitely think that, taking as many practice tests as possible, full length practice tests is the way to go on that. And so good luck on that part of it.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think the target scores that you're talking about between a 510 and a 515 are appropriate. You want to really show that you have the ability to utilize the knowledge that you've gained in the classroom in problem solving activities. And that's really what the MCAT is all about. It's about solving problems.
Yeah. I mean, something in this last MCAT exam I did, something clicked when I was looking at the questions. And I was like, oh, like, even though background knowledge is nice, a lot of the information is there.
In the question. Yeah.
I mean, like, there were some equations I'd never seen before in my life, or maybe I wasn't paying attention. I don't know. But then I just read the question. I was like, oh, okay. So if the denominator, the numerator, it must be that. And it was right.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. All right. Let's look at your activities now. Why don't you start walking us through this? We have, I was looking at this earlier, and you've got quite a variety of different things here, from research to, your activities in terms of your employment and stuff like that. But you've got quite a bit of leadership as well, in terms of things that you've done with your background in business, but also in the sort of medical technology area and stuff like that. Do you want to say anything in particular about all those activities?
Sure. I'll go through really quickly. I have to bore people. The first one there is my dissertation title. What I'm doing there is I am analyzing from a business perspective what factors there might be in healthcare management and all that affect the bottleneck in innovation adoption. When I was first starting my medtech startup, I was doing a lot of interviews with physicians, and constantly I was hearing things like, oh, I've never heard of that innovation. I've never heard of this. I've never heard of this. And the more I dug into it, I saw that currently the peer-reviewed research suggests that there is an average of 17-year lag between innovation and it actually being adopted by physicians.
Wow.
And so I'm wanting to, and my dissertation chair is, according to what she's saying, she's very happy with the direction my research is going. And we're hoping to make it into theory that medical hospitals can use to, I'm getting nerdy with it now, just to kind of pinpoint where some of the lags are in specific physicians and quantifying that. So it's been really fun. I've been loving it. Marrying the business world with the healthcare world. And so that research is going very well. I'm actually presenting in 3 weeks at 3 different conferences.
That's great.
Yeah. And I'm taking my whole family with me. I didn't want to, it's a 2-week thing. I didn't want to be separated from them. So we're taking a big road trip from Utah to Chicago, Philadelphia, Orlando, and back. It's going to be a really fun time. And then, yeah, so like I mentioned before with the blue collar employment, I just put them all together for one thing, and how I worked in all these different jobs, and how for the longest time it was really hard for me to juggle, and it was a
sure
academic career. And then I'm on a few different board of directors. That started with my MBA. And to be honest, the first two boards I joined, my thought was, oh, okay, I mean, this is leadership, and I'll be doing community service with these boards, and it'll look good on my med school resume. That's how it started. But it evolved into something completely different. I mean, I grew to have such a passion for nonprofit work, and I joke that my full-time job is actually there to fuel and give me funds so I could do what I actually want to do, and do these community service projects and do all these things with these boards that I serve on. Yeah. So I mean, it's fantastic. Like right now, I'm on my second term of being the chair of diversity, inclusion, and mission for my local Red Cross chapter.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
I love it. And always, I mean, I'm going to a big thing tomorrow morning for 4 hours to meet with different city officials to help promote the Red Cross's mission. I'm currently the institutional rep for the American Physician Scientists Association for my local university, and they've asked me to be the president of the new board of directors. And so I'm planning on having that all finalized this week and getting that moving forward. Outside of my own medtech startup, I was asked by another physician to help him with his medtech startup. And so I worked on that for a year with him, and I was on genetics and trying to create more affordable genetic kits for people to do family planning and how to see like what to expect when they're going to have children. So, and then this is the physician academic research operations specialist is what I currently do for my full-time job. 40 hours a week. I work at a big hospital, and I work specifically with the operations for physicians who both have clinical, academic, and administrative roles, because their contracts and their operations are extremely complicated and a lot of ins and outs. So I help dictate and move those around. And they've actually been a template for me. I love the way that their workflow goes. So that's kind of the career path I'm hoping to have after residency, after attending, being able to find that balance between the three, and just working. And it's also a little painful working with them every day, because I was like, oh, you're doing what I want to do.
Right.
Sit behind the scenes and doing operation stuff. But I mean, the happiest I was ever career-wise was when I was working this job for 40 hours a week, and then I was working a research / behavior addiction job at night. And even though it was 75 hours a week, I felt fulfilled because I had both of those aspects of my life. Right. I hope so.
And I remember seeing that on your on this list, the patient addiction recovery, elderly caregiving, and stuff like that. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the patient addiction recovery, it's this thing called SBIRT. I would go into an emergency department, and I would do interventional interviews with all the patients in the ER, whether or not, I mean, unless they had like MRSA, then we weren't allowed to go in there because we didn't have the proper gear. But I go into every patient I could and speak with them. I mean, and sometimes, they were sitting there with, you'd have to use common sense. I mean, if they're sitting there like bleeding out, you don't want to bother them.
Right.
But yeah, there are a lot of amazing opportunities I had to go and speak with. I remember one in particular. There was a lady who had a huge chunk of her leg ripped off because she bumped into something while she was traveling on her scooter, and she was lidocained up, so she didn't feel anything. So I walked in, I talked to her, and it wasn't. I thought it was going to be weird for me, like, oh, there's a huge chunk missing out of your leg. But it was fine. And so I go through, I'd ask all these questions because I didn't know whether or not they did have an addiction. There were often times that people at the end of it all like, okay, well, the diagnosis does come out to that you actually have an addiction to alcohol. You are consuming too much. And we'd have this chart that we'd show. And a lot of the patients would be surprised, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So then I go through and kind of ascertain whether or not they were ready and wanting to move forward. And that would kind of split into two different things. I would go and speak with the physicians and say, hey, so-and-so is going through and they have an addiction to marijuana, they have an addiction to alcohol, heroin, anything like that. Right. And so, and the thing is, without that screening, I was finding things that the triage and the other nurses were not finding. And so that would dictate, like, okay, we're going to have to change their medication dosage if they have that in their system. That's good to know. Yeah. And also like just dealing, just like having relationships and speaking with the physicians. It kind of at times became not even shadowing, but just like working with them and right. helping the patients with their addictions. Sure. It was fantastic. I was really sad when I stepped away from that, but schedule, I had to do it. And then before that, here's the funny thing. So I finished my MBA. All my friends are going off and getting these high paying jobs, these corporations and everything. And then I went and I found a job getting paid $11 an hour as an elderly caregiver. So, yeah. And so I was working on my startup on the side. And then one of my favorite experiences was, it was a Saturday morning. I went to a patient's home. He and his family were treating me awful. And, but I was like, just helping them with the different tasks they had during the day, making sure he was cared for, helping him with his skin, and then treating me like garbage. But I mean, it is what it is. Right. And then 4 hours later, I was in a tuxedo at this big gala as the CEO of my startup. And like, people, oh, hello, sir. Would you like some hors d'oeuvres or anything of that? And it was just such a, like, I'm the same guy. Nothing's changed on my end, but
right.
But I mean, it was a great experience. And one of the things with both of those, I had patients who I got friendly with and I knew them and then they passed away. And I remember like some of our emergency patients who were regulars, they'd come in and a family member would come and say, hey, I know that you were friendly with my mom. I just wanted to let you know that she passed away last week. And that really hit hard. And especially with the elderly caregiving, there was a guy that I was with for 2 months. And I was with him for 12 hours a day. And then he passed away, and that really hit hard.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
It was a good experience to know that I was able to help and just be a part of his treatment to make his life better in those final days.
Yeah, that's
so, anyway. It's hard to put everything in a nutshell. But
no, and I get it. And you know, what I see here as the story is, you know, just when we consider all of this, it's very clear that you have a real, a lot of talent in a lot of different areas and in a lot of different ways. And both, you know, in terms of your clinical experiences, but also in terms of your leadership and the experiences in the business world, et cetera, a lot of community service type stuff. You know, I think that this will all play well with medical schools, and you know, it depends a little bit on how you talk about it in the application, but I definitely think that this is all, you know, really good stuff here. I do want to look at. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to let you know that I got a phone call on Friday afternoon, and the USPTO has issued my patent. It is not moved past patent pending. Like my business partner and I were floored. Like we were celebrating. Yeah, we did it. That was a really.
That's cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Very cool. I want to look at see now. You have some medical schools in here that you've identified, 30 to be exact.
I'm still getting it down.
Yeah, sure. And that's the way to do it. And so now tell me a little bit about kind of what you're looking for in a medical school. And this is, you know, one of the elements of Mapped as a software, online software product is that you have the ability to go through and identify which medical schools you're interested in and look at in depth at a lot of things about those medical schools. What are you looking for in a medical school?
One of the things that I'm looking for is if I had my druthers, them having some sort of like a population health sciences research attached to it, because that is something that interests me. I was speaking with somebody recently, and he said that I should also look into biomedical sciences, not engineering, but sciences. That's something I hadn't thought about before, but with my medtech stuff, I guess it makes sense. So I want to continue being a researcher and going that route. And I know it sounds crazy. The last time I went to some of these pre-med conventions, I've spoken with all of the medical schools I could, and all but one said that they wouldn't care that I have a doctorate from a terminal degree from another field, because I was kind of looking into going MD PhD. You know, how's that going to look? I mean, I already have one school did say, "Oh, you already have a doctorate. We're not going to like take the seat from another person looking for a PhD." So, but everyone else said, "Oh no, as long as you can fit it into your narrative, show us how it makes sense that you would move from DBA to PhD, it shouldn't be an issue at all." First and foremost, the thing that I'm looking for is to stay in Utah. I'm looking at the University of Utah. I would like to go there. I mean, I have kids. I have, especially with the housing, how it's looking right now, trying to find it big enough and affordable enough for all of my kids. That I could afford during medical school would be a big thing.
Yeah, sure.
So if I was able to stay in state to accommodate them and also continue some of my relationships, I would probably step down, because currently I'm the president of a lot of different nonprofits. I would step down from the president role so I could focus on medical school, but I still like to be involved in helping them out, at least on an advisory level. At school. And because, I mean, like I said, I mean, those they became a big part of my life, and I want to continue helping them. But I mean, I know that this process isn't really geared for people in their 30s with a career. So if I have to move to a different state, it is what it is.
Yeah, I understand. And, you know, let's kind of boil all this down to, you know, kind of what my thoughts are here. You know, I think that you've got a lot of good things going on here. You know, the activities, particularly, you know, you're beginning to, it seems to me, like hone your interests and your you know, I think one of the things that's going to come across, and some of this depends on the narrative that you establish in your application, but one of the things that's going to come across, I suspect, to admissions committees is that you're, you know, for a good period of time, you're kind of all over the map. You're doing this and that, and you know, you've got so many different things going on. And I think one of the concerns of an admissions committee is there sufficient focus to really say, because, you know, my suspicion is, and I think this is, you know, certainly borne out for me in almost 30 years of being in this business, is that medical school is going to be notably different than anything you've experienced thus far in your life. It's certainly going to be different than your MBA and than your DBA program. It's going to be different in different kinds of ways. And it's going to be the most challenging experience that you've ever experienced. And so I think that what medical schools do very carefully in the admissions process is that they really try to understand, is there a level of focus and motivation here that's going to sustain you during the entirety of 4 years of medical school and X number of years of residency, depending on, you know, which what you go into. And so so that's going to be a chief, and so I want you to be aware of that, because in your narrative, in the personal statement, in the particularly in the personal statement, but also in your secondary application essays, you're going to need to craft that narrative in such a way to really emphasize the idea to these medical schools that you know, while you've got all of these things that you've done in your past, that your focus in medical school is going to be medical school. You know, that is there's not going to be, you're not going to be the president of this and the vice president of that and the chairman of this and the chairman of that. And, I mean, that's not going to work. And if you come across as that, it's going to scare some admissions committees off. So I really suggest that, you really consider that when you're crafting these essays, so that you really come across as being focused and very, really emphasizing the right things for the medical school, so that they will give you a shot in an interview, for example, stuff like that. I think that the other thing, I think that, obviously the MCAT is going to be important. It is for everyone. I really want to emphasize the necessity. I think getting into that, somewhere around 510 or better is going to be really important for you because of the GPA sort of ups and downs that you've had. I think it's going to be really important that you show that you have the capacity that you have learned, and that you have the capacity to do well on the exam, to utilize that knowledge that you have learned in ways that will allow you to be successful. And so really emphasizing, I'm emphasizing here the need for you to really be focused in that MCAT study preparation, so that you really do well on that. I guess what I would say in terms of when we boil it all down, what I typically do is use it like a traffic signal: red, yellow, or green. Red being, no, you're not ready. You need to wait. You've got some work to do. Yellow being, well, maybe there's some information that we don't know, or there's some information that is a little bit, concerning to me. And so, depending on those things, we'll have to sort of figure that out. But also, and then obviously green is where everything looks good, and I'm giving you the green light to go forward. So what I would say for you, Joseph, is that I'll give you a definite yellow light.
Wow, thank you.
We don't know. The MCAT score obviously is something that is a question mark at this point. I think that you've got enough good stuff going on in your application that I would definitely feel like that you should give it a shot. I would want to see you apply early, even without the MCAT. I would suggest that you go ahead and apply, in as early as possible in the cycle, and so that the medical schools, all they're waiting for is that MCAT score. Definitely working significantly on crafting not only the personal statement, but those activity descriptions, so that they really emphasize the nature of what you've done and what you got out of it. The depth of which you can say, this is what I got out of this experience, that I really learned X, Y, and Z out of this, or whatever. So those will be, I think, really important. But all in all, Joseph, I would say that I'd move forward. The MCAT, as I said, is going to be an important thing for you here. I would say that you want to, prepare as strongly as possible over the next, couple of months, which you've got, really April, May, and part of June, depending on when you actually take the exam. So you've got 2.5, maybe 3 months to further preparation to do, and that's going to be important work to make you be successful. But all in all, I think that things look pretty good. I think that you're really doing a lot of good stuff, and I see a great future for you in medicine. And so good luck to you, Joseph. I think this is a really exciting time for you. You've got a lot on your plate, and you will have a lot on your plate in medical school. And so the fact that you are functional with so much on your plate now bodes well for what you may face in medical school, and being able to sort of balance all those things out. And so good luck to you in this process, Joseph.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That
Yeah,
means,
absolutely.
I mean, I really respect you and Dr. Gray and everyone. So those words really mean a lot to me. Thank you.
Good. Absolutely. And what I would say is keep in touch with us and let us know how things are going, and we'll be really interested to see how things turn out for you.
I do have one question.
Yes, absolutely.
When it comes to, I have that temptation, and I'm trying to fight it because of my low GPA, to maybe apply to all 30 of those medical schools I have listed. I foresee how that would be extremely difficult with the secondaries and juggling all of those.
Yeah, there's two issues related to applying to that many schools. One is just the cash flow issue. It's expensive. The other is the time in the summer when you've got all those secondaries, as you pointed out, those secondaries coming in, and you have to really be on target in terms of getting those in as quickly as possible, because most medical schools, if you don't submit a secondary, or if you're late on the secondary, then that's not good. And so absolutely, I think the average number for MD schools these days is about 18 or so. So 30 is not like way outside of what I'd say. It's probably a couple of standard deviations away from kind of where the average is. But I've seen students apply to 30 or so schools many times, and I've had students apply to more schools, and I've certainly had students apply to less schools. So
okay, well, thank you so much. Your wisdom means a lot to me. Thank you.
Good. Well, we will be interested to hear how things are going with you, Joseph. So good luck.
Thank you. I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, right.